All right, guys, welcome to this brand new interview. Today we have Kevaughn Bradford. Kevaughn joined us, I think it was 6, 7 months ago. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I
Slightly less
lose
than a
track
year
of
ago.
those things.
Yeah. So around 6, 7 months ago, I think when you started off, I remember you were in a full-time job, working 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So was it construction?
It was more like 5 a.m. to 7 p.m.
5 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, 5 to 7.
That's
It's the
insane.
usual construction hours.
Okay. So 5 to 7, dude, that's like 14 hours a day.
Well, wake up at 4, we start work at like 7, and then 7 to 7.
Got it. So
Yeah,
basically
so
12-hour shifts.
yeah,
Wow.
basically 12-hour shifts.
So you went from working that 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. job that basically consumed more than half of your life to quitting that, going all in on the business that you already had at that time. Um, and now consistently generating what, over 5K a month from it?
Yeah, roughly like cash collected 4.8 to be exact. But yeah, you can say roughly 5K. It sounds more pretty, but
Right.
and a concrete number is 4.8 K.
Okay, got it.
Mm.
And I guess I want to know, like, when you came across my stuff, because you just mentioned to me before we even started the recording uh, that you watched one video. You watched one
Um,
video, and
Not
then
even one. It was like half of one. It was half of the video, and I was like, all right, it's a no brainer already. He's already it's on a similar wavelength, and a similar content that I was already digesting,
uh-huh,
with spirituality, with essentially self help and et cetera and et cetera. And I was
right,
like, all right, perfect. This is a course that I've been looking for,
uh-huh,
because throughout this space, I haven't really stumbled across sort of content that resonates with what I'm looking to do, which is to build that ideal character
hmm,
that effortlessly, accomplishes, the goal I'm looking to accomplish. Um, One of my favorite quotes is, one that, well, it's not really a quote. I'm gonna paraphrase it. It's essentially where, you can either choose to be successful or become successful and then suffer from that success. And I want to consciously choose my success and become successful intentionally,
mm,
so I don't suffer from just stumbling into success.
got it. Totally, man. Yeah, I remember that where I think, I don't know which week I mentioned that in, but it was like you
Mm.
can either, choose success consciously or become successful unconsciously, and as a result, suffer your success. Right? I think I heard that from Satguru, but it's so accurate.
Yeah, I believe it's week one. This is actually my second dip into the course. Yeah, I believe it's week one.
Got it.
Video two.
Mm. So, Kevaughn, what I want to know is, because we talked about a couple of things before I even started
Mm.
this recording, but what I really want to know is why reality martial? Like, why did you come into a personal development program? Where were you at in the journey of entrepreneurship before you joined, and what was like the motivation? I know you described it a little bit briefly, but it would be powerful to know some of the details around it too.
Well, sort of the motivation for entrepreneurship is, being an immigrant. That's sort of the mindset of having an outsider mindset, and being in the U.S. That's sort of the mindset that I carry through, sort of the underdog mindset, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
of essentially just with having immigrant parents, it's essentially just hard work rules it, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, my goal with entrepreneurship is to work hard and smart, so not only have a really amazing business but also work smart at it. So no more 12-hour shifts
Yeah.
of just essentially just eliminating my time, but obviously still taking into account of hard work. But yeah, with entrepreneurship, it essentially just comes from the fact that I'm originally from Jamaica, and people there, I want to say I had a beautiful childhood. I don't really consider myself being poor in a sense, because I've had a rich childhood. Grew up on a farm with with livestock and et cetera and et cetera, with a big family, a big loving family. So to me, that really wasn't poor. I actually had an amazing childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Then we came to the U.S., and I've been in and out of private school, so I essentially had essentially of essentially what life can offer, but it was always being taken from me. So as I was in and out and of private school, so I saw like the quote unquote great life, and then being thrown into public school again, which there's nothing wrong with public schools, but there's a noticeable difference between that. So essentially I was always been in between, sort of what I could have and what society's given me. And I
Hmm.
always wanted to pursue the best of the best. To really answer your question of why I'm pursuing entrepreneurship is essentially this is life, and I choose to be the best version of myself to give back to our human society and our species as a whole to move us forward.
Hmm.
Because with one person doing well, it overall helps our whole society. Um, which is another quote that I love. Seeing someone do bad, it's not gonna benefit me in any sort of way. And that's something I really internalized. With seeing these, wins of people doing 6 and 7 figures per month, that's something I really had to internalize. They're not really a competition. When they're doing well, that's something that I want to celebrate, and that's something we do celebrate. Um, but yeah, just pursuing excellence. To answer your question, I know I went on a little bit of a tangent, but yeah.
No, no, no. That's helpful for me too. So I guess going back to it, I kind of wanted to ask as well, uh, what was that biggest problem you were struggling with? Because I remember you did have your business up and running, but I think it was that it wasn't as consistent as you would like it to be. So, give us a brief overview of what your business is and, what was the biggest thing you're struggling with before joining Reality Mastery?
Great question. The biggest thing I was struggling with wasn't more so business wise; it was more so personal wise. Because with anything, it's 80% you, then 20% of the thing you're pursuing, whether it's business, fitness, or overall spiritual, or just growth in general. So yeah, it was more so a mindset thing of really just gaining clarity and just releasing the heavy, dense feeling that comes with anything really, any sort of growth. And that's sort of what I've gained from your course. And what I'm looking to gain more clarity on is essentially just lightening that dense, heavy feeling.
Hmm.
Um, and, the first time through your course allowed me to do that. It allowed me to implement the systems with ease. Went through my daily, tasks and targets and hit them with ease and clarity.
Hmm.
Um, and also, one thing that I love about your course is, essentially helping me to detach from the process within itself. Because when I go to the gym, I'm not fixating on having big arms, being the swollest guy in the gym, or just just walking out with a six pack, after a
You
60
look
minute
pretty
session,
swole.
right? No, I'm in and out of the gym, but yeah, dude, I always bring it back to that. As in, I'm not looking at that end goal. I'm
Hmm.
just going through the process and actually enjoying the workouts.
Hmm.
And I sort of take that philosophy from working out and implement it into business. So when I'm doing my copy for my inbound to attract my clients, because we work with info and e-commerce brands
Hmm.
that's doing multi 6 or 7 figures per month. We essentially help them to scale.
Right.
But yeah, when I'm looking to do our inbound method to write my copies, I don't think of what's the next client to sign. I essentially just do out of a pure essence of perfecting my craft of writing copy, as well as giving back to the community and etc. So I essentially take that philosophy of just detaching completely from the process, as you've mentioned within the course. Um, and yeah, that's has really helped me with you know before and after with the course itself.
Hmm.
Now, to further answer your question, I was struggling with, just really just seeing clearly what I need to do within the business itself. I was too much into it. It's
Hmm.
sort of like being in the forest and just getting lost in it. So
Hmm.
essentially, was able to take a bird's eye view of things, address what needs to be addressed to move the business forward in the most quick, efficient manner possible, and do that exactly.
Okay, so an interesting thing you mentioned was you mentioned that dense feeling and getting clearer. And as you got clearer, that dense feeling lightened. So before joining the program, I guess, what was that dense feeling? How would you describe it?
I would describe that dense feeling, as I mentioned, it's like being lost in a forest, right? I don't know exactly how the quote goes, But if you're looking into the forest, like if you look at the forest, you see a forest. Then if you get closer,
Hmm.
and you start to see the leaves, the branches, and then you get lost in it. I mean, essentially, I actually have your the posters stuck up all over this room, but essentially one of my favorites quote from the course is, when life gets too heavy, you got to just remember that it's in magnificent game. And yeah, that's one sort of philosophy that has helped me to lighten the load
Hmm.
and remove that dense feeling, because life is just a beautiful game that we play, and we get to choose a character
Mm.
um, that we want, and that's something that I did in the past before, chose a character that was totally detrimental to my success and overall well-being, and et cetera, and et cetera. So I know firsthand, that, when we intentionally choose what character we want to be, it's
Hmm.
inevitably going to happen.
Right.
You can choose, to be this, charismatic, this suave guy that, that gives back to society,
Hmm.
or you can, be the dark character, the villain, so to say. Um, and now you get a choice, and whichever choice you choose, that's a choice that you're gonna inevitably get, and
Right.
that's what you're gonna reap from your character.
Totally. What's interesting is when I look at your posts in the group, I can see that your focus goes from the external results and like what's happening to the character and making the character better and better every single day. I can literally see elements of that you're mentioning. And this is what we see with the most successful clients. They stop looking at what can I get? What can I get? And their focus becomes, okay, who can I be? Who can I be? And the focus becomes more intrinsic rather than extrinsic, right? You stop focusing on the externals and you look at how to present the right image to the mirror so that the mirror reflects the correct image. And I think that's what you've done really effectively, because like to like a lot of people it might not seem like a huge result of going from like a full-time career to 5K a month, because I've posted testimonials where people have gone to like 200, 300, 400K a month. But what's huge here is, and a lot of people won't be able to see, is you went from a full-time career where you were working 12 to 14 hours a day, starting a business up when you're drained, your job is literally draining you from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. every single day. That's tough. That's really difficult, because at the end of the day, you only have very little energy left in order to put it on your business. So that's what I'm really curious to know. Like, how did you manage working a full-time job while at the same time getting this business there, while at the same time having the motivation to have, to have even the discipline to work on your business? What in the program really helped you do that to get to that consistent level? Because I think the biggest thing for you was, before joining, the consistency was an issue. You would do it, but then you wouldn't be able to do it, which is normal, right? Which is what we see. But what really helped you overcome that, to get the consistency, to get the discipline, to stay motivated?
That's another amazing question. I fr- it's from the course. It's where I forget the exact analogy that you use. It's sort of having a carrot and a stick, I believe. And that stick to poke me forward was the job itself, because it's to give you a more like detail of what the job actually details. It's a construction job. We do grading. So essentially, I'll drive the off-road dump trucks. It's like, one of the wheels is as tall as me, and I'm like 5'11". And essentially, we will do like the dozers, the excavators, and etc. So essentially, I hate the job, so to say. It could be fun time to time, but that's not how I want to spend my life. As I said, it just takes so much time out of your day. And one big thing that I love and enjoy from scaling my business to 5K, which is just the beginning, um, is my morning routines and my night routines. Wake up at 6:45, go on my 15-minute walk, then grab my coffee, and sit in the garden and just start my day with gratitude. And then from there, hop in my cold shower, and then from there do like a 20-minute meditation before I dive into my work. And then from there, I do my work, and then at the end of the day, either end with the gym or the or the sauna, and then with a book and some meditation or whatever. And then yeah, just those little things, those little glimpses of freedom and what this business that I'm pursuing can give me was motivation and is still motivation. But yeah, to answer your question, from the course, there's multiple things that helped me along the journey, and it wouldn't be fair to just point out one. But one that the first thing that came to mind was that stick and carrot sort of metaphor. What's poking you to move you forward? What's that fire underneath your ass to move you forward? And for me, that was the job. Um, and yeah, and then the carrot is essentially what the business can grant me, moving forward.
Right. So is that more like the core emotional driver, finding that, like what really drives you
Oh
to go towards
yes,
that
yes,
business?
yes, that as well. The core emotional driver. Just say it'll essentially open some things up for you, give you some insights of what you're actually doing to move forward, and what's actually a why, and um that that discovery within the course, the why, has opened a bit of suppressed or unlocked memories of why I'm actually pursuing greatness, and it all goes back to my mother, right? So yeah, her being an immigrant, it was me and my brother. We came to America. And my dad's in Jamaica. He Before that he did have his papers and etc. But yeah, came to America. It was just me, her, and my brother. So she was essentially a single mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was getting support from my dad, but nonetheless, still a single mom raising two boys. And yeah, seeing her go through some things and the sacrifice that she's made for us to put me in a position to whereas you know I get to pursue my dreams, right? Because one thing I love to tell people is that despite their situations, they're blessed nonetheless. If you have a smartphone, um, nonetheless an iPhone, they can figure out how to make it in America, right? And me being I have a whole setup, right? Um, and yeah, the core emotional driver, that's one thing that really opens up some suppressing memories, and really just opens up my eyes as to why I'm actually pursuing this, and why I'm actually waking up each and every single morning. So yeah, that the why, as well as getting concrete and a clear vision of my why, as well as the stick and carrot metaphor.
That's really powerful, man. That's super powerful. Um, I can tell that that's a great place of power for you too. Like whenever you think about that, that's a powerful memory. Like thinking about what your mom sacrificed for you, thinking about, how she was raising two boys so that you can live the life that you want now. Right. And now you look at it and you have, you went from this job that was taking up so much of your time to now having so much freedom. And now you can choose what you can do with that time. How does that feel?
You
Being
know,
able to choose, like being able to wake up in the morning, go for a walk and get coffee and go to the gym, the sauna, and choose what you want to do. How does that feel, man?
if I'm being honest, it feels amazing, but it feels like the norm because I've submerged myself so much into this culture. Being a part of a community that's doing 5 figures per month, that being this norm. So yeah, it feels amazing. Compared to what I was doing before. Waking up on someone else's time,
Yeah.
and so on some days we don't even know what time we're going home. Right? He would just like say, "All right, we'll wrap it up in 15 minutes," and then that'll be the day that would just wrap up. So yeah, if it feels amazing to pursue this, and we're only at 5K, and by year's end, the goal was 25K, which he said to up it to 25 to 50K, which has turned some gears in my mind as to how we're gonna actually accomplish that. So yeah, we have the systems in place to do that. So yeah, that's essentially that target. Is 50K by year's end.
I think you could do it, man.
Mm.
I think you could do it very easily before the end of the year. Like I can tell you have the grit to be able to do that. But I guess going back to it, that transition point though, from going from working at that full-time job and juggling the business to saying, you know what? No. From this moment onwards, I'm quitting and I'm going to go full-time on the thing that I really want to do. How did that come about?
I honestly just weighed the odds. you know, with the job I was doing, I'm gonna say roughly around the same in terms of monthly revenue. Um, but I was weighing the option and the sort of the leverage I could do with my business, which is to scale it to infinite, to wherever I want to scale it to. And I'm limited, obviously, with the 9 to 5. So yeah, I just weighed my odds, and it was just really just black and white as to what I need to do moving forward. So yeah, I just took the risk. Gave my 2 week notice, left within a week. So yeah, I was cool with the formats and etc. So yeah, they understood what I'm pursuing. Um, so yeah, essentially just weighed the odds between the business and the 9 to 5. I
Mm-hmm.
just made that jump, and I have no qualms that your course gave me the confidence to propel me to make that decisions. As well as at the time I was reading The Power of Now
Mm-hmm.
by I forget his name, but I believe it's Elliot Tolkart or something like that.
Eckhart
But
Tolle.
yeah, Eckhart Tolle. So yeah, I was reading that along with after finishing your course, and it really just tied everything together for me. And that essentially just gave me the confidence to just take the dive and jump fully into the business.
How do you feel about that decision now?
Um, I feel the same way I felt beforehand.
No relief,
Because
nothing. You're like, nah, I'm static. I'm chill. Nothing.
um I really haven't gotten to that that point in my business where it's like uh and that means I don't think I'll ever reach to that moment where I'll just be like so yeah, it's just a constant, just steady moving forward.
Hmm.
um but yeah, even with investing in your course, that was a risk as well. Because at the time I wasn't doing for 4.8K. So yeah, I took the risk on that, and I'm seeing the return on investment tenfold on it. And I continue to see returns on it. Being that this is my second time diving into it. Actually on week 2. I'm starting week 2 today. So yeah, as I said, man, your course is one that essentially just brought clarity to the vision, as to create that character. Because I'm thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now of who the person that I'm creating, and I'm essentially just setting the foundations, and just building on top of that each and every single day. Because what I've learned from experience is that whoever you decide to be, that's the person that you're going to be. um, and yeah, your course is essentially a blueprint to that. So yeah, man, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for you, Quasi, and what you've been able to give back to this community.
Oh, thank you, man. That means a lot. I mean, with anything, it's got to come to the right person at the right time, right? You can give the right tools to the wrong person and they won't be able to know how to use it. But it's your diligence that, you put in the work, you used it diligently, you persisted in your vision, and the tools just became a supplement to help you just clear up the forest, clear up the weeds in the forest so you can find your way. But I guess, you mentioned about the 50K, but what is that longer term vision with entrepreneurship? What do you want to ultimately be able to achieve?
Obviously, building my investment portfolio to give me the option to never work again. But entrepreneurship to me is a sport. It's one of the hardest sports. Um, and essentially adapted that mindset. I've already had that mindset, but I've adopted it from another mentor of mine, Gadazi. So essentially, entrepreneurship is it's a sport within itself. It's one of the hardest sports in my opinion. Um, and yeah, I'm looking to play this game far into my 80s. But as far as a long-term vision, obviously, we're aiming high. Um, I have no qualms that I'll aim and hit that billion mark. Being that this is what I'm pursuing at this young age. I'm 21 years of age, so relatively young, so to speak. But yeah, the space that we're in is not the norm, and you know, with the sufficient cash flows and with the right investments and et cetera and et cetera, that's essentially what we can achieve through that. But yeah, from for a long time vision, it's essentially just playing the game for the long haul.
I love it, man. I love to hear it.
Mhm.
Anything you would like to say, any concluding remarks? So if someone were in your situation where you were day one before joining the program and they're having second thoughts about it, they're on the fence about it, what would you say to them?
If they're having second remarks about investing with you and with the program, it's really not even about, it's about, their belief in themselves and, how confident they are in themselves and producing results. Because I love what you mentioned earlier is like the course is essentially a tool. Um, it essentially help you along the way if you use it correctly. You're not gonna just jump to the course and get your results. It's about really just unpacking what's in it because there's just massive value within it. And just going through it one time, it's like reading a book. Whereas you're gonna take out little things that's gonna help you where you're currently at within your journey. Then the second time you go through it, it's gonna help you with that new stage that you're in. So yeah, it's sort of like a book. To whereas you know what's detailed in the content, and you've seen what's come out of it. So it's up to you to really decide, and to see how confident you are in yourself, really, and just to take that bet on yourself to further progress where you are within your journey.
Is that what you'd say to Kevaughn 1.0?
I would just say go for it.
I love that. Kevaughn, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really helpful, guys. I hope you found value in this as well. I'm going to attach Kevaugh's socials down in the comments and the description section, his website, his socials, anything to help you get in touch with him. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.
Much
Peace.
appreciated.